I'm Amanda Young, and we're here in the PCA office in beautiful Amelia Island, Florida. So welcome to our third speaker here in our winter webinar series. We're very pleased to be able to welcome Michelle Balmosy. So Michelle, thank you again for the presentation. As usual, Michelle generally gives us an update at least once a year for a global overview, and it's always well received, and today will be no different, since I believe that last check we had about 85 registrants from 19 countries. So we know that globally everyone is interested in what Michelle has to say today. So we certainly appreciate his time to be able to come to our presentation. So I wanted to just get started with a few housekeeping rules. You should be able to see on your screen the question and answers. And so for those of you who have attended with us before, it will be the same process, but all of our questions will just go through your GoTo webinar dashboard and submit the questions to the staff. So you should have that box, and if you'll familiarize yourself for just a moment with those controls. As you have questions come up throughout the presentation, you're welcome to go ahead and send those to us, and we will be vetting those at the end of our antitrust policy. And although I don't believe that we should have any issues here, I will let Tony make his spiel, because that is what we want to always ensure, is that we have all legal protocol in place, and he will assure everyone that this presentation has been vetted through him and we are safe to proceed. There you go, Tony.
Thank you, Amanda, and good morning, everybody, or good evening, depending on where you are. But I will give you my usual reminder. I believe there is probably some antitrust policy. There it is in the record of the meeting. And I encourage you all to read that. As you know, we cannot discuss our individual company prices or costs during the course of this meeting. That's not going to be in Michelle's presentation. His is global and at a much higher altitude than specific company issues. I think there will be little opportunity on this call for anybody to divide up markets, territories, or customers. I will be listening. If there's anything that comes through in the way of questions which are problematic, then we'll either correct that or bypass the question and move on. So with that, please enjoy Michelle's presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Tony. So just a couple reminders before we get started. We do have Michelle joining us today. And subsequent to Michelle, we will have a presentation at the end of this week from Biochem Europe. So you'll receive some additional information subsequent to our presentation, which will have some registration links for you. Those are always available through our website by just visiting the 2021 webinar link. All right. We do have the spring meeting that is forthcoming that will be in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida at the end of April, so April 27th through 29th. So we are planning for this to be a face-to-face meeting. We do have early bird registration that is still in play through January 15th. So if you would like to go ahead and get a registration in place and utilize the discount, that is available right now. Hotel reservations are being accepted as well, and all of those links are available on our website. And if you'll just click the spring meeting at the very top of our webpage, that can get you over to additional information. Right, we're here with Michelle today, and most of you know Michelle, so I will not get into all of the detail of his career, because really he is just a superstar to everyone, and certainly has been a great addition to our governance team as well on our board of directors. So before we get started, I do want to point out that Michelle is with Forchem Resval Group. I think is the correct name now. And I want to point out that 4Chem was awarded the 2021 EcoVadis Platinum Medal for their corporate social responsibility. So 4Chem has really continued to build upon their values of sustainability, reliability, respect, and trust. And so with that, Michelle, we certainly respect you and we trust your presentation and guidance. So I will be turning all of the presentation.
No, so dear all, thanks for joining this webinar organized by the Pine Chemical Organization, and special thanks to Amanda for her invitation to deliver this paper. Of course, no real fun to speak in front of a screen, and I hope that next year we'll be able to meet face to face. So I start updating the usual figures regarding the production of turpentine, rosin, crude tall oil, and then we will have a look at the trends of our industry. Let's start first with the gum turpentine production. Only 120,000 tons this year. So you can see that there is a drop by 20,000 tons compared to 2019. Main reason is in China, the crop affected by environmental regulation, in Brazil affected by COVID. Last year, I was hoping that to see a recovery this year, but I was wrong, and volume went on declining, unfortunately. Quick reminder about the softwood kraft pulp production, 43 million of tons. Of course, almost 90% located in the northern hemisphere, North America and Europe, Russia, and only limited volume available in Asia and the rest of the world. So it's really an industry located in the northern hemisphere. Now the CST production, directly linked to the softwood kraft pulp production, 3 to 5 kilo per ton. Expected volume this year, 205,000 tons, which means that we are back to the pre-COVID situation, which is very good news. Last year we saw the drop by around 10,000 tons, but now we are back to, I would say, normal level. Fractionation capacity, no real changes, 260 tons, 60,000 tons of capacity, but capacity in use only 205,000 tons, corresponding to the CST production. Of course, the biggest fractionation plant are located in USA, 4 plants, in France with 1 big plant, in India with 1 main one plus 2 smaller ones, and then smaller units in Chile, New Zealand, Russia, and China. The crude tall oil production, slightly over 2 million of tons. The same comment that for the softwood kraft pulp. So the North America is the biggest producer, 1 million of tons, and Europe, Russia around 850,000 tons. World fractionation capacity, 1.8 million tons. Capacity in use around 1.5 million tons, because all the units are not working at, you cannot work at 100% of the theoretical capacity. Biggest capacity is in Europe with 6 plants, followed by USA. And if you have a look at the previous slides, USA is producing more CTO than the fractionation capacity. So that means that every year there are some crude tall oil available to be exported from USA to the Europe, Sweden, Finland, France, and also to Japan and China, which are the main destination for the US CTO. I got from the custom statistics figure around 125 million of US dollar in 2020, representing around 250,000 tons. Crude tall oil demand per market segment, that's the situation nowadays. Fractionation representing still around 75% of the CTO demand, and biofuel around 16%. But situation is changing now with increasing demand for biofuels, new projects going on. I think if you have all heard about Fintoil in Hamina, Finland, that will start in the third quarter of 2022, a capacity of 200,000 tons of crude tall oil. Also to be mentioned, the SCA ST1 Gothenburg, Sweden project, for the second quarter of 2023, capacity around 200,000 tons of feedstock, but crude tall oil plus other feeds. And of course, the mainstream pine products project in Charleston, USA, for 2023, with a capacity, announced capacity of 100,000 tons of CTO. So even with the crude tall oil production increasing in the coming years towards 2.2 million of tons, the CTO supply will be tight, resulting in harsher competition between fractionators and biofuel producer. And in 2023, biofuels are said to represent between 25 to 30% of the CTO demand, which is not good news for our industry. TOFA production, 460,000 tons. We are also back to normal, back to pre-COVID situation, because last year we had a drop by around 50,000 tons, which was a lot. Last year, the demand of tall oil derivatives for oil fields declined sharply in USA, following the crude oil price crash. You can see on the right side of the screen that even the WTI index went negative during the short period. And also we saw lower TOFA demand from coatings and other end uses. The crop of other vegetable oil was also affected by the COVID-19. This year, the situation is totally changed. We can see a high demand for all vegetable oils, and TOFA supply is short and even very short. And we can see also a high TOFA demand for HVO production for biofuel. For this demand for HVO, we can mention several projects that everyone knows, like Total Lamed in France, plus the project of Total to convert refinery in Normandy into a biorefinery. Also, we can mention Neste in Finland, but smaller, and especially we are also to mention the Shell announcement to build in Rotterdam one of the biggest European biorefinery by 2024 with a capacity of 820,000 tons, which means that only one big biorefinery could absorb the world TOFA production. Interesting will be to see who from between the fractionator and the biofuel producer will be able to afford the highest price. Of course, biofuel industry is relying on subsidies and regulations that might change with the development of other technologies like hydrogen or electrical vehicles for cars, trucks, even ships. Also, already I've read that already an ATR regional aircraft, hydrogen powered, is being tested, now starting to make flights with hydrogen as a fuel. My personal opinion is that traditional chemical market segment should really be favored. I have recently heard someone from the biofuel industry comparing the biofuel regulation to landmines to describe the complexity and the uncertainty of this market in different countries. The global rosin production, around 1.1 million tons, unfortunately down compared to last year and compared to 2 years ago, especially with the decline of the gum rosin production, mainly in China and Brazil. Tallow rosin production, 460,000 tons. So it's now back to normal, back to pre-COVID situation, which is a very good news. Last year we had quite a substantial drop, like for the TOFA production, but this year we are reaching again 460,000 tons. Global gum rosin production, really a sharp decline, down to 625,000 tons. 2 years ago, it was 800,000 tons. But hopefully, as indicated by Mariana in her presentation last week, tree tappers are back. And hopefully now the gum rosin production will start again growing on. And Brazil, for instance, has the potential to grow up to 180,000 tons, possibly 200,000 tons theoretically. Let's see. The global resin production, 3.15 million tons. Of course, hydrocarbon resins are becoming commodities with capacity expansion in Asia in excess of demand growth. But there is higher sustainable demand for natural resins driven by the tire industry and the eco packaging for the adhesives. About the tire industry, I've just read that Michelin company is announcing tires made entirely with sustainable materials by 250. So still a long road to reach this goal. As nowadays the figure is only around 28%. But already Michelin testing a new tire composed of 46% of sustainable material. So it's also going far and quick now. Post-COVID challenges. The IMF is scheduling GDP growth slowing down next year. High price of energy, electricity shortage in China, raw material and semiconductor shortages. For instance, if you take China, the forecast of the IMF is growth of plus 5.6%. But if we look at the latest figures for the third quarter of this year, the growth is only 4.9%. For China. So it's as weak as the end of the 90s. The priority in China is now to decrease the debt and to develop the internal demand to be less dependent on the rest of the world. to build an economy like an olive shape. Is to say a limited number of very rich people, a limited number of very poor people, and the majority of middle-class people to feed the domestic demand. But for the time being, it failed. Domestic demand in China is low due to a lot of uncertainty. For instance, problems of the building industry with large companies almost bankrupt. So China is still the factory of the world, and building, for instance, 96% of the containers that are used for transportation. About transportation, well, the world trade's a big traffic jam. The world trade of goods is now around 15% compared to pre-COVID situation, probably slowing down next year, even if the curve, this curve is showing an increase. But personally, I think with the GDP growth slowing down, probably slowing down a little bit, because already plus 15%, it's very high compared to 2019. And for the time being, so the economy is facing a lack of containers, clogged airberths, lack of truck drivers. Back to normal mid-2022, end of 2022 was difficult to say, but interesting to see that already the Baltic Dry Index, measuring the transport price of dry goods, bulk dry goods like ores or cereals, is down from 5,600 to 2,400. Of course, for the moment, it's not at all correlated to the SFAI index for transport of containers, which is still very high. As a conclusion, let's see what will happen on the pine chemical market. This year, the high demand for crude tall oil, TOFA, rosin, terpene derivatives, so that's for all the pine chemicals. The crude tall oil fractionators are working close to full capacity. And even if global economy will slow down, the pine chemicals will go on growing at a higher rate than the average GDP growth. Asia will have the fastest growth and will drive the demand, as usual. And of course, we have to consider the lower carbon footprint for the pine chemicals. The growing environmental concern will favor the pine chemical. But the real challenge now is to increase the gum rosin and gum turpentine production. And we can already notice new development projects, for instance, in Brazil. Let's hope they will materialize and ensure sustainable growth. So thanks to all for listening.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Michel. So some good news, some uncertainty and questionable news. All right, let me get back over to my screen for just a moment, and then we're going to start with some questions. I do have one to start with, and for those of you who would like to ask a question, if you would like to go ahead and submit that to us now, then that would be great, and we'll get started. Okay, so let me bring these over so I can read them. So the first question is, what are CTO exports being used for in Sweden and Finland, and then an additional part for France, Japan, and China? So what do we have that, or do you have any insight on what those CTO exports are being used for?
Yeah, of course. Main CTO exports are going to the fractionators. The main fractionators are located in Europe. There are fractionators in Finland, fractionating in Sweden, fractionators in France, Japan, China. So a major part is going to to this industry, but also part of this CTO export are going to biofuel producers.
Yes, I imagine that's why they separated the question, because I believe it was fairly obvious for Sweden and Finland. So beyond biofuels, what are the CTO exports going into? Is there a differentiation for use over in Asia compared to Europe?
Well, actually, if you look at the custom stats, everything is mixed. So it's CTO exports that are, but depending on the destination and the capacity, it's all you can deduct that for the moment the major part is going to fractionators, but more and more going, and also it's depending on the processes. Some biofuel producer, they are actually fractionators because they just transform the fatty acid part into biofuels, but they are also producers of tallurosine. So there is the boundary is not so clear in that sense. Some limited volume is used as such as CTO to convert it in biofuel, but most of the volume it's well, it's a kind of fractionation where the fatty acid part is using to make biofuel, is used to make biofuels.
Okay. One, I'm not sure. I'm going to leave that one. I'm going to leave that one. Well, actually, I'll ask it. I need to vet one of these over to Tony. So in the meantime, while I'm doing these two over to him to make sure they're okay, a question was asked regarding 4Chem and that you all are at the forefront of innovation and R&D. So is there something that 4Chem is working on right now that you might be able to share with us as we're going into the future, particularly looking at some of the sustainability and getting into that sector?
Well, a bit difficult because I cannot really debug the
Right.
research and work, so it's a bit tricky question. So I cannot really answer this question. Yes. Of course, we are aiming all our products, all our projects are to develop sustainability, but I cannot be very specific to describe them.
Okay. The next one is, oh, they're coming in. I'm waiting for an answer back on that one, but the next one is pretty innocuous. What is your view on the production levels of the various pine chemicals for 2022? And do you see China increasing production?
Well, I think perhaps, of course, Li would be the best one to answer this question. Unfortunately, the rosin conference in China has been postponed because of COVID. It should have taken place end of November. Now it's postponed to December. But with the info I got, it's that unfortunately they are a bit pessimistic. So I am not in China. I think the main problem are the regulation, the environment regulation that are really making barriers to the development of tree tapping now. So I'm a bit pessimistic. I'm much more optimistic with the other project in South America and Brazil, as Mariana explained. So also some project in Europe, but it's a smaller scale. So unfortunately, I'm not expecting next year really real growth in China. Let's hope that at least it will stabilize and not go on declining again.
Okay, thank you. So we did receive a corrected question back from the legal counsel. So thank you, Tony, for that. So it has been rephrased. Are there any efforts to change or eliminate biofuel subsidies in Europe?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Sure. Are there any efforts to change or eliminate biofuel subsidies in Europe?
Well, actually, there have been and there are still some efforts, but the RED2 is in place from 2022 to 2030. So I am not really expecting big changes in the next years. But we are now more and more getting news that already existing biofuels are considered as the old technology. So I think it will be more the move to new technologies, and also perhaps the competition between the biofuels and the chemical industry, because the biofuel, they have the limit is the penalties, the price. If they are not, is the amount of penalties if not using biofuels. So if the price of those sources is going too high, then perhaps they will face problem. But I am more thinking that really the change will be the new technologies, but unfortunately not before 2030.
Okay. All right, so there are a good number of other questions. Tony, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review those. Oh, here's the next one. Same question. Here we go. Trend. Okay, what do you think the trend is for China's gum rosin and gum turpentine production? And do you believe it will stabilize or continue to decrease, especially with recent concerns from the Chinese government regarding the environment? Do you think it may rebound? I know this kind of carries over to more of the China discussion you were on just now.
Yeah, personally, I'm a bit pessimistic. I think if it stabilizes, it will be already a good level. It will be a good thing. But I'm personally a bit pessimistic.
Okay. All right. So this one is, when you referred to Michelin's goal to be 100% sustainable by 2050, would this include upcycled SBR from petrochemical origin?
For the tire industry, for Michelin?
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, they are announcing that they will increase the level, of course, of natural rubber compared to synthetic, all materials, to see the resins inside. But I cannot remember how many hundreds of ingredients are used, or different materials are used in a tire. So it's a big challenge to convert all the ingredients into sustainable material, 100%. So that's why they are announcing this goal for 2050. So it's a very long way. So, but already a lot of, even if they short term they won't reach this goal, a lot of progress going very quickly because they are nowadays at this moment normal tire, Michelin tire contains around 28% of sustainable material, but already they are testing a real test of new tires with 48% of sustainable materials, and the first result that the behavior of this tire is totally okay, totally perfect. So 100% will be a long road, but already reaching 50 is now reachable very quickly.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so the next one is, where is excess TOR going that is produced at the biorefineries in Europe? New markets or filling the Chinese gum rosin void?
New market?
Yeah, I'm going to send this to you so you can see it. It's a multiple part question, so I'm going to send it over to you in the chat really quickly. Bear with me just a moment, just so it'll be easier for you to see. There we go. It's more of a 4-part question, so.
I cannot see it, or perhaps let's start part by part, the first part.
Okay, so where is the excess tall oil rosin going that is produced at the biorefineries in Europe?
Well, of course, easy to guess is going to the rosin, to the companies making modified rosins.
Modified rosin, okay.
Right.
And
Yes.
so
mainly the additive industry and rubber industry.
So, and I guess that the expanding upon that, is this going into new markets or just filling the void for the Chinese gum rosin needs?
Actually, new markets at this point. If you look at the, for example, the inks market segment, it's not really growing. The growing market is the adhesive, because there is a real need of natural resin. I was discussing recently with a big adhesive producer, and they were telling me that market is now market demand is for natural resin. There is an excess of hydrocarbon resin, but our customers, they want eco packaging, they want natural resins. And unfortunately, for the time being, there is not enough rosin, for instance, rosin ester production to make additional switch from hydrocarbon to rosin. So I think that if we have an additional production of tall rosin, it will primarily go to the adhesive market, this segment, to the tire industry segment too. That will be the main, because the ink segment is not really growing.
Okay. And so to carry over with some of that, this is really mainly going into the Chinese market. But are there any craft mills in China that are producing CTO? And the second part, are there any fractionation refineries planned in China?
Yes, actually, the problem that production, CTO production, is quite small. According to my information, it has not changed. There is in China two fractionation units, but they are pretty small. Perhaps could be called as a pilot plant compared to the big fractionator in US or Europe. So one fractionator is integrated to a pulp mill, but I think the capacity is something 15,000 tons, so it's peanuts compared to, for instance, Forchem 200,000 tons. And there is another one which was a small unit also that was operated by an American company and now operated by a Chinese group, but they are quite small because there is almost no CTO. The production of CTO in China is very, very small, and even those two small CTO refineries are relying, as far as I know, on US exports of CTO.
Okay. Thank you for that. Could increased gum turpentine prices ultimately have the effect of making the resin a byproduct?
I would say no, because of course with the with the demand for all the pine chemicals, all the well, I don't know if I can say that we studied that prices of rosin is increasing, prices of turpentine is increasing, and there is a high demand for both markets. And I don't think that now turpentine producers are really considering the tallurosine as just a co-product or a byproduct. Sorry, gum rosin as a byproduct. They can make money with both products, and the demand is very high for both products, turpentine and rosin.
Okay. See here. I think that there's one final one, but bear with me because we had a few that had been rephrased. So here we are. It says gum rosin increased production is mainly in Brazil, but Brazil is increasingly hit with climate change problems. How do you see climate change affecting the availability of gum turpentine?
That would be more a question for Alex or for Mariana. But I think even with the climate change, there are several projects ongoing to develop tree tapping in South America, and I think at least short term they won't be affected, and they really hopefully the gum rosin production there will increase. Then we will have to see in longer term, but this I'm not the best one to comment on that.
Yes, and I think that Mariana's presentation from Thursday last week certainly shed some light on that as well. And so hopefully some of those climate change concerns are going to be resolving. As she had mentioned, that a lot of the issues have really been around the Amazon forest. And thankfully, some of the other areas in Brazil are doing much better. So with that, thank you, Michelle. As always, you have been a wealth of information, and we so appreciate you sharing your expertise and your insights within the industry so that we can stay up to date. I will let everyone know that as with all of our webinars, you will receive an email tomorrow. Generally, it's about 24 hours, but 24 to 48 hours after our presentation. The paper is already available online on our website by visiting the link on the 2021 webinar series. And as soon as the video is finalized, we will be uploading this as well to our YouTube channel and GoToWebinar channel, and also to our website. So give us 24, 48 hours just to let the video finalize, and let us edit it just a moment, and then we will have that information out to everyone. All of our presentations that we're hosting are available on our website. So you're always welcome to view those after the fact. With that being said, we do have a few more webinars coming up. This Friday, we will have an update on the EU bio-based economy with Bernard de Gallenberg. Bernard is actually taken over this Biochem Europe group, which is a part of Cefic over in Europe. So he'll be sharing some information about their organization and what they're looking to do going forward. We also have two scheduled for next week to finalize our webinar series, and that is Ben Thorpe with BDC. Ben is actually going to guide us through some late stage technologies that are available. He's going to be covering about 14 technologies and their impact on the industry versus their stage of development. 6 are commercially ready and 8 are significant near commercial technology development. So we're looking forward to seeing what information he has to share regarding the innovation that is happening. Additionally, we will have James Hatch next week giving us an energy sustainability. I'm sure it will be quite enlightening since our industry continues to have challenges when it comes to competitiveness, particularly with energy. So we look forward to James's insight on what he is seeing currently and into 2022. And with that, thank you again, Michelle. You are always here and available for the PCA, and we could not be more thrilled to have you as a member and also to have you as a member of our board of directors. So thank you again for being a presenter and also for your governance of the PCA. Without your help, we would not be able to provide webinars and presentations like these to the industry. So with that being said, perfect. With that being said, thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a great Monday or Tuesday if you're in a different part of the world. And we will see you on Friday for our next webinar. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye-bye,
Thanks,
Amanda.
Tony. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.